And we are live.
You're on mute, Thomas.
Good news is I turned off my speakers, and I was the other way around here. Ellie, do we have any public comments?
None on the Google form right now, but I believe the link is still active.
Okay, great. And then I don't know if everybody, I apologize, I did not put a link to the agenda for last time. I will do that now, and if everybody's agreeable, I will then go ahead and people can look at it through the meeting, and then we can come back at the end to approve the meeting here. Let's see here, March 7th. Sorry about that.
Tom, I think you're talking about the draft minutes, which were, I did link up both on the website and on the agenda.
Oh, on the agenda, I'm looking at it. It doesn't look like it's linked.
Oh, you're probably looking at your Google Doc versus the PDF that we posted.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll go ahead and do that as well. Okay, apply. There we go. Okay. So as some of you may know that Bart has been putting a lot of work and doing some great work on the TAC recruitment application. And I guess easier just if you're agreeable, Bart, to turn it over to you and you can kind of go over and cover it.
Okie doke. So in the agenda, I put out some, or just had some wording that we would use if we send out a bright arrow to any attendance areas and to the community if we're looking for more members. So I think part of tonight will be to see who is planning to come back and what spots we need to fill on the membership. And then if you guys are able to kind of look over the text around that request, that would be what we would send out via email and post on different websites, and maybe even put in a peach jar or a flyer to try to get the word out a little bit more. So that's the first part, which is the wording of the the request for help. And then the second part is pointing to this online form for which we're using for 9 different committees and going to be trying to launch if we don't run into any issues. And that talks about kind of the first part of general information of the person, and then after that, if you select what committee you'd like to get into, then you can go to the specific questions. So TAC has a number of questions about different IT subjects and pieces there. So I will add some agenda to the oh no, there, Tom's got it. Okay, so we got the link to the form. It's actually in the agenda that's on the website. So if you go to the website and then go to today's meeting date and then agenda, you'll find the stuff I'm talking about in that.
Oops, sorry.
So I guess just opening it up to the membership. Robert had seen this earlier. I had sent it out to Lucas, and I think we had sort of a draft at the last meeting for folks. So we've gotten some feedback and we've added that to the application. So just kind of opening it up to the committee to see if there's anything that looks wrong with this, or if anybody's had any chance to look at it at all. That'd be great.
yeah, I mean, it looks great to me. Did we want to take time to go through it, or is everybody comfortable looking? I think it's pretty clear. You cleared up a few things that I'd had questions on. Does anybody have any specific questions on the form? Robert has his hand up.
I think one concern I have is that the form is a bit long. And for example, one thing is that we have the whole list of schools. I don't know if we really need to do that, but I mean, I know this is a common district form, but just, I mean, people don't like to fill out long forms. So ours was 2 pages, and it could have been probably a page and a half on a piece. We did restrict ourselves to pages. Anyway, just a comment.
Can I
Pam?
go?
Pam?
My wonder is if we are asking families to apply or parents, guardians to apply now, there might be a little confusion for the families who have students attending our virtual academies. So we want to make sure that it's clear that they're selecting their home school or somehow figure that. And I think there's a way to change that form to make it be a drop down with all the list of schools instead of a series of check boxes. So that might shorten it.
I'll chime in there. That's good feedback. Thanks, Ann. I will add some language around the virtual academy. I think we need all the check boxes, unfortunately, because you could have an American and a Thornton parent. So that's why we don't have a lot of formatting control. So we do actually have a lot of schools. So we end up having a long list.
Yeah, and I thought, Robert, just to clarify my thoughts, when I originally looked at it, I thought the same thing, that it is a long form. But then the more I thought about it, if somebody is, wants to apply for, a committee, asking them to spend a few minutes or a few more minutes filling out, I don't think is an onerous request. If they have the, and I'm saying the attention span, not willing to fill out a complete form, probably not willing to spend the necessary time and commitment to serve on a committee. And that was my thought. I'm not saying that's the only way of looking at it, but that was my initial thought when I looked at that. So let's see here. Allison? You're muted, Allison.
Sorry, there's myself and a few other people in the chat do not actually have access to see the form. So just if you could look at the permissions. And then secondly, the first time I applied for this committee, I didn't hear anything back for a year, and then was asked to join again, and I responded again, but I had to fill out the whole form again. So I was just going to request that if someone doesn't get accepted, that they get a reply back of some kind. And because I totally agree with you that people should take the time, fill out the form, but if they do, they should at least get a courtesy reply back that you were not selected or you were selected.
I'm going to chime in again. So that, I think that's an excellent piece. We'll add that to our liaison group. Also, having this online now, you get a version of a filled out form after you go through it. So it gets sent to your email. So now we have a confirmed email. And previously we had trouble necessarily building those email lists anyway. So this should help add to, I've applied to one, and then we can talk to the liaisons to say whether or not they were picked. That's good feedback.
Okay, Don?
Yeah, I basically what I was going to say has already been said, but just to support people who have already said it, I wholeheartedly agree with Tom that it doesn't take that long to fill it out. I actually filled it out myself this morning because my term is expiring. And I would agree. And even though it's long because you have to scroll past stuff, there aren't that many questions. And I echo what Tom said, that if people aren't willing to take 10 minutes or 5 minutes to even fill that out, I'm guessing that maybe they're not the people we necessarily want on district wide on these committees. So that's my 2 cents. So I think the questions are fine. They're understandable. It's quick. And I would say go with it.
Linda?
So one of the things I've created a number of these for scholarship applications for junior high and high school. What might make it a little more user friendly, so you're not continuously scrolling, is to make sections. So you have like a section of, here's your pertinent information, like your name, address, email, and all that stuff. Here's your attendance area information, and here's what is your professional knowledge and things like that. If you want to look at some of the stuff that some of the forms that I've done, I've got one up right now for the Washington PTSA scholarship. And that actually goes through, and once you fill it out, it emails the kids a Google Doc with all the pertinent information filled in, and then the rest of the form, the rest of the Google Doc that they need to fill in. So just an example of what I've done with forms. Making it sections sometimes makes it a little bit more, a little bit less cumbersome. So just my opinion.
Robert?
So I would agree with you that it's not too tedious a form, but we are also what I would classify as super volunteers. We are all on 10 different committees or 10 different projects, and we're generally recruiting, in this case, parents that may have never been involved with the school district before. And sometimes when they see a form that's a little bit longer, then I know that our company has a form. Everyone needs to fill it out because it's just, and you look at the sidebar and it's long. We may not have any control over it, but we've never had a full list of schools. We've always had attendance areas, but if it needs to be, then it needs to be. The other thing is, I know that we get a copy of the form, but this is a bigger issue for me. The first year we did not save forms, and so everyone had to reply. We lost half our parents. It took 2 seconds, and I'm not filling out this form again. I'm willing to volunteer my time, and we struggled that first year. Every year after that, I've tried personally to make sure that we keep copies. Now, maybe since it's a form, it's in a spreadsheet, the district has it, maybe do it that way. This kind of relates to also, thanking people. One of our previous CTOs was not very good at this, and I didn't realize it, so now I do personally remind. And Lucas has been very good at this. But if the leader of if the liaison to the committee is not doing it, then because that's the person that has to do it. So I'm personally checking on getting back to people that are not on the committee, but it's a variable thing. Thanks.
Okay, Lucas?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond real quick to Allison's comment. I wanted you to know that I have replied to all of the people who have not been accepted on the committee since I've been here, because people do take the time to do that. I think it's respectful to do that, but I just wanted you to know that I have done that, and I think that's a practice that will continue.
Let's see. Bart?
So because we're trying to combine the form, it would be tricky to make it smaller. But another approach would be to have a simple interest form that would then trigger an email or a link to this form ultimately for those people. So if we really felt like there was a barrier to entry to fill out this long list, maybe we would just say, I am interested in being on a committee. Here's 9 of them. Click one of them, and then we have the liaison send them the link to that form. So that could be an approach to make it kind of a smaller bite at the beginning of this process to sign up.
Ellie?
Just a comment in regards to the old form compared to the new direction. If kind of a Google form using sections was created, I like on the old form that it had some front matter about the purpose and scope of the work of the TAC. So if there were a section which had maybe some hot linked descriptions to each of the committees on like the first section, I think that would be of benefit for any future person that's filling out forms. Something to click to refer back to.
Okay. I think that makes sense. I'm still, and I guess I'm raising my hand here, not as chair. I guess I am still leaning to the idea that I wouldn't want the form to be a inhibitor for people joining the committee. But the reality is that, you know, to some extent, when you join a committee, this is say it takes 10 minutes. I filled it out. It didn't quite take me that long. And, you know, if you're on the committee, we all know, all of us here, you come once a month for an hour, hour and a half. I just, you know, I guess in some ways it is an indicator of your desire to help out. But I don't want to make the decision for the committee, but I guess I'm more in line with the ideas that the application is part of the process. And if it is a little bit, takes a few minutes, you know, if it takes 10, 15 minutes, that shows that you're truly interested. If that's an inhibitor, then maybe your commitment to wanting to be on the committee isn't that high. And I want to be clear, I'm speaking as a person raising his hand, not as the committee chair. Bart?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this online form, and we will add some of the feedback that was having a link to kind of promote all of the committees and explain them a little better. And we'll also have information about the virtual parents added in there. But we generally accept it the way it is right now and move forward with our membership with that piece.
I second.
Second. Oh, Don seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, go ahead and raise your hand digitally or type yes in the chat.
I've got 7 chat yeses and 4 raised hands. So is that a total of, wait, do I have that correct? 2, 5 plus 7. Oh, that's unanimous at 12 yeses then.
I guess there are no nays or abstentions then. Okay. So if you all didn't know that, this is tonight's night for Ms. Noguera to shine in her C&I role of expertise here. Is just to give everybody a real quick review, we're continuing to look at LMSs.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. One quick question. Could we go over the membership and see who's coming back or not coming back? Or do you want to do that later?
I'm sorry, Robert. I couldn't catch. I don't know if it's just me or.
Do you want to go over the list of people that are planning to come back? You know, what is our membership going to look like next year?
I guess my feeling it would be best if we presented in a document form. I guess I should have asked that ahead of time, huh? I'd be leery of just doing it verbally because then we might lose it. In the past, Robert, maybe I can impose on you if you could type up what you think is the current membership status, or do you already have that?
I have a list.
Oh, okay. Can you?
Yeah, I'm typing it in.
Linda, you had a question?
No, sorry, Tom.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming these are the people that are ending term.
Right. So Anita, Alok, Juan, and Linda, are you interested in reapplying for another term?
I would be, yes.
Juan?
Yeah, this is Juan. I'm from Irvington area. If there's another parent from the same area who's willing to join, sure, I'm glad to let them have my spot. If there's no other parent from Irvington, I can stay for another 2 years.
Okay. And Alok? Is Alok here or Anita?
Alok hasn't been here for a while.
Okay, and I'll check, I can follow up with them as well. And for staff, Ann? Lucas, you have a question?
I will check with my bargaining unit.
Okay.
It's an
Yeah,
appointment.
I guess I have a question here. If you're a member that is appointed from an attendance area, it would be my impression that you would have to reapply, whether and so like in my case, last year my term was up. I had to reapply to the superintendent to be reappointed. If I didn't want to, obviously I wouldn't, but so I think by default, if your term is expired, you've expired, and you would then fill out the form, and then Lucas would then review it and go from there. So I think, Robert, it's just asking if if your term is expired and you're interested in returning, you need to go ahead and fill out the form and then go from there. It's not an informal process, so to speak. I think just to make that clear to everybody.
Right, although I'm hoping that we can make it simpler by helping people remember what their past form was like, which is why, for example, right now the Google Docs will save that information. To make it easy, I don't want to retype everything I wrote last time.
Right.
But the reason I go through staff is, yes, staff is a separate process, but it just helps the community know if anyone deciding that they're going to move on and we need a representative.
Okay.
The
Anything
website also has the year that we're terminating as well.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I'm just providing here for you.
Lucas?
Yeah, just one reminder for the people who are thinking about, lower my hand. Oh, it reminds me. Wow, new feature in Google Meet. So I want to remind folks that obviously every other year we have new members who serve as the chair and the vice chair, I believe. So this year, Tom has been our chair. So that means next year a community member will be a chair. And then I think the vice chair will be a staff member. And I believe the secretary can be either. So if you're a community member and you're on the committee and you're going to be here through 2023 and you're interested, certainly think about it. Campaigning is not very hard, I assure you, if you want to lead the group. But there is a vote on that. So just be thinking about whether or not you would want to do that. We all know Ellie is definitely the best secretary we've had this year. I mean, he's been fantastic.
Thank you.
And we had him
Appreciate that.
last year too.
Well, I just wanted to be very certain on narrowing it down, saying he's definitely been the best secretary we've had this year, no doubt.
This year, absolutely, just this year, yeah.
He was the best one we had last year too.
Okay, any other conversation, discussion, questions on membership? No, I just want to reaffirm, if you look at that list on site and on the website, you see your terms up and you want to continue on, you need to fill out that form, and that way you make sure you're on the the list. And I don't know how many applications there were last year, but it's not been overwhelming, so I would imagine that we'll go from there.
In terms of the first meeting of the new year, I know that there was an issue with when that was going to be considered for the student member versus.
It's always June. For us, it's always June.
Always June. Okay.
Always June. Yes. Yeah. Juan?
You have a quick question. So what's the deadline for filling up the form?
That's a good question. Does that say that, Bart?
No, I thought that question might come up. I was actually going to look at figuring out when that was going to be, but usually we allow for 4 weeks plus. We want to make sure that there's enough time that once we get the applications, we have the opportunity to review them, bring the ones to the superintendent for review who they might be appointing, and obviously just do as good an evaluation as we can. But we'll make sure that that information is posted out there with the form.
And in our case, we want to have, I think, the board vote in May. So we want an earlier deadline than some other committees.
Yeah, the board will make the decision the last board meeting in May. That's traditionally the case. And then the first meeting of the year is in June.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. So as we know, there's been a conversation about learning management systems, and I think it's important that everybody understands what we currently have and the capabilities of the system. I could speak for myself. Oftentimes, in regards to Infinite Campus, that a lot of times that teachers think, because that's who I primarily deal with the questions, is they think, oh, I wish it would do this, it should do, and then they find out, in our case, at our site from Stan, or if it's, Dawn has been instrumental too in sharing, it does do that. So we felt it would be beneficial if, and Dawn volunteered, to kind of give a demonstration on what Google Classroom does, and the capabilities, and then also the Infinite Campus. So with that, I guess I'd turn it over to Dawn.
All right, here I am. So just to clarify a little bit, the focus that I'm really focusing on tonight is the Infinite Campus portion of things. And really what Lucas asked me to do is really focus on the parent portal and what Infinite Campus does in terms of the ability for parents to have the information they would like. And then just talk briefly about Google Classroom, but I can answer questions about that as well. So I'm going to share my screen, and usually I like to live demo things in Infinite Campus, but due to the nature of showing a parent portal, it's virtually impossible to do that without sharing student information. So having said that, I am going to be presenting using a slide deck with screenshots. And again, the reason for that is the privacy issues for students. So I'm going to go ahead and share I'm going to try my entire screen, and hopefully when I switch tabs, you'll be able to see it. So I just have to be honest. I forgot my my dongle on my desk that attaches to HDMI. So I will not have two screens once I start sharing. So if Tom or Lucas can help me, if people raise their hands or things come up in the chat, by all means, just interrupt me. And I did see that Lucas just raised his hand because I haven't started sharing my screen yet. So Lucas, did you want to say something before I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, well, Don, I appreciate you doing this tonight. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this, Don definitely described a little bit, but I've had sometimes families reach out to me or parents reach out to me, and even some of the parent representatives from TAC with questions about the Infinite Campus LMS, Gradebook, or Google Classroom. And sometimes they don't think certain information is available in the system or whatever it might be. And so I feel like this would be useful, one, for the community to see tonight, if we have parents who are maybe watching that haven't utilized Infinite Campus yet, but also just for the members on the committee themselves, because one of the things I really appreciate about the parent representatives here is you guys do bring back good feedback from the parents that you talk to, but I also know that you bring information out to the community. And so that's why I really felt like this would be useful. And we've obviously talked a little bit in the past about some of the things that we can and can't require in terms of use, but I want to make sure it's really clear what both systems are able to provide to you as parents and also to your students as well. So that's the purpose for tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing, and then you can let me know if everything's visible. Can't share your screen. I do not have screen sharing permission. Issues.
Lucas is getting you set up, Dawn.
All right.
I don't have the ability.
Denied before I even
Co-host.
got started.
I added you as a co-host. Can you share
Okay.
now?
Let me try again. It will not. Lucas, do you want, who's the host of this meeting? Lucas?
Lucas and Bart are hosts.
So, because Lucas has the slide deck. Lucas, if you want to present and I can just talk through it, we could do it that way. It's called Parent Portal Infinite Campus. Is the name of the slide deck I shared with you.
You emailed it to me, right?
Yeah, I can reshare it with you right now if that's helpful.
Yeah, do you want to do that?
Okay. It should pop up.
Yep. All right. Okay.
All right, and here we go. So basically, if you want to go to the second slide, Lucas, you guys, you can go in present mode. So for the outcomes, basically, all these, the first like message center, today and calendar, assignments, grades and gradebook updates, attendance and more, notifications and settings, all of those are what parents see on the left-hand side of the parent portal when they go into Infinite Campus. So I'm going to talk about those things, and then I'll end with Google Classroom. So if you go to the next slide, Lucas. And part of, and let me just tell you that notifications and settings I am going to talk about later, because I know one of the big questions comes back to how do parents know when these things happen. And so so just hold those thoughts about notifications and I'll get to that, but I just want to assure you that that's kind of where we're going with this. So in that, when a parent logs into the parent portal, on the left-hand side in that black toolbar, those are basically all the things I listed on the outcomes of the slide deck. And so the first thing is the message center. And in the message center, there are two options. There are two tabs. So you see them circled there. You can tab between, you can choose between, parents can choose between seeing announcements, which are those school-wide announcements, or they can even be by grade level. I don't know if you can, how well you can see that. Lucas might be able to zoom in a little bit, but on that example here, one of those announcements, it says, hello, 7th graders. And then the other one says, dear Centerville families. It went to everyone. So those are those school-wide announcement type messages. And I'm sure Anne has sent plenty of them. The other option would be things that go to the inbox, which is your basically your infinite campus mail, if you will. And so that's where a teacher can send stuff out to their whole class or all of their students. I mean, all of their parents, right? So if you're a parent and something was sent out to all parents as a email Infinite Campus inbox message, that will show up there. So those are the two types of messages parents can receive in the parent portal. Now, when we get to notifications, I'll be able to talk more about how parents will know that they have a message there. So, so that's pretty much the gist of it right there for parents. Now, students have the third layer of now having Gmail, but for the purpose of this, we're going to just focus on Infinite Campus. So the next thing down on that left-hand side is, go ahead, Lucas, you got it. It was today. It says today, and then the next one down is calendar. So, you know, these are just basic things. If you log into the parent portal, it'll show that day. So it's, you know, what's the schedule that day, if there are assignments for your student or students that are due that day. And how it works in the portal is you can, if you're a parent with multiple students in the district, you can toggle between students. So in the upper right-hand corner, this example I'm showing you, the parents portal I'm using only has one student in the district, but there would be a little drop down where you could switch between kids to see the other student stuff. So basically, if this parent goes in, they can see what's due today for that student. They can see the schedule for the day, you know, if and you know, anything that might be specific to that day. And then we start getting into the bigger things like assignments. So on the next slide, what parents can see, and you'll notice the things that I circled here in the screenshot. So as a parent, I can go in and look at my students' assignments, and I can look at you know, this one, the top one is showing the current term, and those are the assignments for the term. And as this teacher is putting in scores, I can see the scores. And the other screenshot on the bottom right, you could click on that tab that says missing. So as a parent, if I say, I just want to look and see if my student is missing anything, I could click on that missing button and see missing assignments. So that's what you'll get from those that I've covered so far. And I see, does Infinite Campus, I am able, because Lucas is presenting, I can actually see in the chat, provide the ability to send messages to individual teachers.
Oh, you got that? Okay, great, Don.
Yeah. So as far as so the parents can't message the teachers in the portal. The parent would use the teacher's Gmail account for that. So that's the answer to that question. On the next slide, Lucas.
Yeah, Don. So one point of clarification on that is that when we say that they would email the teacher, the parents and the students do have access to the teacher's email in the portal. So that's
Oh,
how
they do. For some
Yeah.
reason, I thought that was one way.
But they cannot send from the portal, but they can get their email address from there.
Oh, okay. Got you. Okay. So I misunderstood what you said. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. And then, so then after, if they see assignments, you know, if you know, that just kind of gives them an overview. And then you can drill down further. The parents can see further. If you go to the next slide, when they get to grades, so you can, so that there you only saw assignments and individual scores. If you want more information about their current grades, when you go to the grades portion of this, now this is an example of a secondary class. Now the elementary schools are still using Illuminate for their grades. So you can see the terms there. So obviously for secondary, we have 4 quarters. And then a parent could click back. Like right now, we're currently in 3rd quarter. But if you said, oh, you know what, I need to go back at 2nd quarter and look at something, or the parent can see previous quarters as well. So that's kind of an overview on the whole grade situation there. And then there's another choice in the left-hand toolbar that says Gradebook Updates. And what this provides is exactly what you might think, right? Anything that's been recently updated or changed, it just shows the parent some of the more recent information. And I don't exactly know how they define recent. I don't know. I'm realizing that right now that might be a question. I'm not sure how much of a window of time it considers recent, but obviously we would be able to figure that out. And then if you continue on, one of the other topics would be on the next slide, attendance. So I'm flying a little blind right here because I'm not doing the presentation. So with attendance, you can also check that out for parents. And again, it would show it for secondary class, of course, it shows it by period. It also shows tardies. And again, you do have those options to look back at previous quarters. And then I combine a whole bunch of things right here because it's pretty self-explanatory. There's schedules, fees, documents, and more. I don't even have a screenshot here for fees because there wasn't anything there for me to show you. But basically, they're pretty much what you might expect, right? You could look at the student schedule. For documents, it's basically for secondary, the only thing I saw in there were previously posted report card information. But if a parent wanted to go back to a report card, they could find it there, and you can toggle the school year. So this is our first year using the gradebook in Infinite Campus, but as time goes on, you would be able to refer back to prior report cards. And then the more section basically just has student information there. There is the online registration piece there as well, which would be relevant when it's that time of year. And then those quick links listed there are for the schools where the students are currently attending. And so for this one, this screenshot, the teacher I used had 2 schools. So you could see both schools there. And then from there, the other thing is where I promised you it would be coming is the big topic about notifications and settings. So here's what happens with notifications. If you want to go to the next slide, Lucas.
John, I just wanted to make one comment that at this time, we're not using the fees notification.
Oh, okay.
The fees link. It is, there's not a cost to us, but once we do decide to use it, we just have to, connect our banking information to it. And there are some really good future uses, but it's just not something that's been implemented yet. One of the really cool features that Infinite Campus does offer is a school store, which also there's no cost associated with that. It's part of the core product. So some of our schools have a variety of different store solutions out there. And it may be that Infinite Campus isn't the right one, but that would be integrated with the fees as well if we went down that road.
Okay, well, that might be why I found all blanks when I looked for examples of fees. Okay, so then what I want to talk about now are the notifications and the settings, because this is really the big thing, right? So let me just say this to start with. When a parent logs in to the portal, if you see in the upper right-hand corner, and it really looks just like what it looks like for a teacher, there's that bell, which is the notifications. And then there's what I refer to as the person icon. So if the bell has a number there, that means that there are some notifications, and the parents could click on that. And then, so what you would, and then they could see what the notifications are. On the person icon, and this is the big thing that a lot of people are going to be interested in. When you click on the person icon and then choose settings, it will then open up that on the left where it says notifications. And then this is where a parent can see all of their options for what they'll get notifications for. Okay. So what you can see is there's choices about send notifications, select notifications to receive. And now you have your choices there. When an assignment is scored, every time a teacher scores an assignment, the parent will get a notification. And you can say all, or, the parent can control how many of those. Checkbox, every time a grade is updated. Attendance is updated. Responsive course is scheduled. I imagine that's I don't know how that's all connected. Lucas might have to speak to that. And then if there's some sort of document that requires a signature, I can't really speak to those bottom two. Lucas, do you want to jump in on those? And then I'll explain more about how they get those notifications.
Yeah. So right now, I don't believe our district utilizes the responsive courses, which is that's a decision that we've made. And I'm actually personally not very familiar with that feature. Document signatures, that would be I believe if there's something through OLR that needs to be signed. I think that's the connection. And I did want to provide just a little bit of additional detail. When you look at the two options where assignment is scored and grade is updated, you have the gradient there. And what that means is, as a parent, by default, these are all checked, by the way. So when a new parent or a new family comes into the district, those are all checked by default, and all scores and all grades are at the very top. And what that means is then if there's an assignment that's scored, immediately there's a notification, or if a grade is updated, there's an immediate notification. However, as a parent, if you drag this down, I might be a parent that I only want to get notified, for example, if my student gets an assignment that's less than 70%. So you could drag that down and only get notified in those situations. Or if my grade is, 80% or less, something like that. But by default, it is on so that any grade or any assignment, I get a notification. And this is specifically for the app utilizing push notifications. Dawn, were you going to address that specifically, or did you want me to touch on that?
You're welcome to go ahead, Lucas. I was going to talk about these. So these notifications will, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lucas, because I don't have a lot of experience with the parent portal, as you can imagine, because my kids are 29 and 27. But when any of these things happens, there'll be a notification, but the parent has to log into the portal to see that notification, right? And part of what we heard from parents that they really liked and miss on School Loop was School Loop sent them an email. And And so they didn't necessarily have to log into School Loop to know that something changed. And a workaround for not having to actually log in to the portal just to see if there's a notification would be to download the mobile app on your phone, and parents can download the mobile app, and I think I have an image of what it looks like on the next slide. But if parents and students can download the app on their phones, and then that works just like any other application on your phone, where if you allow for push notifications, then if a parent is sitting at work, they'll get a pop-up on their phone that lets them know there is a notification in Infinite Campus. So for example, an attendance notification. They didn't have to go log into the portal, but they did get a pop-up on their phone that alerts them, hey, go and look, right? And then they could click on the app on their phone and then see, whatever that notification is. I'm going to stop there for a moment, Lucas, and see if you want to add or correct anything.
No, that sounded pretty good. I think that the other little piece that I would share is that, I know parents really liked that weekly email or however often it went out with some summary information. The other piece too that is a recent addition to the features that I believe many of our teachers are now utilizing is the ability for them to push out emails with missing assignments. And, I think some of our teachers are getting accustomed to it, more and more are using it, but that does require that the teacher actually go in and do it. Whereas previously it was an automated thing. It is a slightly different functionality, there's no doubt about it, but I think it's still providing good information for our parents and our students.
So the other thing too that would require a little bit of troubleshooting for the teacher, and I've shared this out with the tech liaisons, and there are some things that are really important for parents and teachers to know, and that has to do with when the parents initially register online, they had some choices about the message center and what kind of notifications they wanted for the message center. And basically, and basically the two boxes that needed to be checked for them to get any kind of notifications that might need to be sent out would be general and teacher. So it's very, very important that if a parent isn't getting any notifications from a school, there's something wrong. And they need to call the school and make sure that their message center, preferences have both of those checked. And I'm going to share something that seems to be, it was an issue and there's just been an update. So it's going to be fixed, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. And this is probably really important for the Ann Damrons of the world to know that there used to be, and it will be going away once the update gets pushed through, there used to be another checkbox that said private. And it allowed parents to choose private, but then to also mark teacher in general. And it may have been interpreted like private meant not to share my email address, but by checking that private box, it basically negated any other boxes that the parent may have checked. So if parents said, well, I want to keep my email private, and that's what they were thinking it meant, but I want teacher notifications and general notifications, they're probably getting no notifications right now. So, and the other thing that will be changing is right now, if a parent wants to change their notification settings for the messenger, they have to contact the school. The latest update that Lucas's team will be looking at pushing out, and the reason why we didn't have it allow for parents to change it themselves is because it also allowed the students to make changes, which we didn't want them to be able to change their information, like their email address and things like that. Infinite Campus has now separated that. So the IT department will be able to allow parents to say, I want to change my notifications and do it themselves. Now, when that's going to happen, stay tuned, but that's coming. So, so the biggest thing here is that for the parents who aren't in the habit of going on the portal and are really searching for a way to get notified, the best solution would be for them to download the mobile app and allow for those push notifications.
Linda has a question.
Yes, Linda.
Actually, I just wanted to rewind a little bit to the recent updates. You were saying you didn't know what the date was, what the time frame was. It looks like, I just looked at both my kids, and it looks like it's about a month. So both of them started like the old
recent?
one is like the middle of February
Okay.
up
Thank you.
until now. So it's about a month.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, change is hard, and we all did get really used to, you know, us parents with, you know, my kids were both in junior high with School Loop, and we got used to what we got, and now we're getting used to what we have. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, change is sometimes not real easy.
Okay. Ellie?
Question about the attendance feature as one
Mhm.
of the areas that parents can navigate to. Is that just kind of summary data, or does it provide any layer of detail from what the attendance desk staff writes in, such as if a kid was tardy and the attendance desk made note that they were tardy and arrived at?
I don't believe there are any notes. I think it's strictly present, absent, tardy
Thank you.
totals.
And also whether it's excused or unexcused.
Yeah. I just meant like it doesn't say tardy, you know, took too long to change their PE clothes or something like that. Okay. And then Anne?
Dawn, thank you for a lot of this information. I think one thing that would be very beneficial to our parents, particularly the parents of current fifth going to middle for 6, 7, 8, or our current sixth going to junior high, is newsletter information or a push out to fifth and sixth grade parents about how to enable those notifications, what the screens look like you showed in your slide deck. At elementary, most of our schools are figuring out that the families who have kids in middle or junior or high school are getting really familiar with this. They appreciate the attendance updates. They call us immediately when their child is marked absent. So that, to me, that's the target audience to get going and enabling all these, the push notifications, the other things. We still do have at least an elementary bright arrow calls going at 10. That gets a lot of people to call us back. But we also have to consider that an hour and a half is, and for some schools, it's only an hour because they have part-time attendance clerks, a very minimal amount of time for the clerical work to get done for that absence to be changed to a tardy or whatever. So there's a lot of positives to this, but it also has created some not insurmountable challenges. So, but little clips of information that can be pasted into school newsletters would be great if we can get there. Thank
I
you.
like it. Arun?
Yes, I guess my question is, are we looking at Infinite Campus as an LMS at all, or as a gradebook? So it seems like the gradebook is where we should stop. But
So there are LMS, it's LMS as well, where students can submit their assignments there. teachers can get feedback. There's SEL check-ins that teachers can do to check in with their students. You know, there's some of these things, and similar to School Loop, I would say is, obviously, it's going to take a couple of years to learn all the different ins and outs of a new student information system. That's regardless of whatever student information system was chosen. But we also are always going to run into just how teachers personally decide to use it. There are teachers who still want to use Easy Grade Pro and manually enter their grades however many times a year they have to be entered into Infinite Campus. And there's all the extremes in between. There are features that are available in Infinite Campus. And as we tried to not put too many of the features out there early on for teachers because they were already overwhelmed and we already didn't have enough time to do as much training as we would have liked. So having said that, as teachers, some teachers just kept going forward and figured out things on their own and have used a lot of the features. Other teachers have used it as, on a more minimal level. So as far as what parents may or may not see in terms of the gradebook and LMS features and things like that, that's going to be, teacher dependent, would be sort of my response to that. Arun, Lucas, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Don. So just a couple comments, and I appreciate that what you said, Anne, about making sure that our students who are going from either 5th grade to 6th grade into a middle school environment or 6th grade to 7th grade to a junior high environment. We do have out on the website Q&A, and we also have some training documents, both for students and for parents. But you're absolutely right. We want to make sure we remind those parents that those resources are out there. And in terms of I haven't really shared this, but as a reminder, this year we do have a stipended position for our secondary sites, and we are going to continue that next year if I have anything to say about it. So we are shortly going to be putting out the communications to principals to identify teachers who would take on that additional stipended position. But we think it's important enough, at least me and the IT department believes it's important enough that I'm dedicating funds from our budget to have a person, or if they want to split the stipend, 2 people from each site that would be there to support those frontline questions. And as part of that role, it is actually part of their responsibility to do some training, but we do want to obviously have comprehensive training as much as possible from the district. And as I think has been commented quite a few times, this last year, we went from 3 days of professional development down to 2 days of professional development. And I requested to have 4 hours, but it was an impossibility. So, that's going to continue to be a challenge no matter what happens. And I'm not sure exactly how we overcome that, but it wouldn't matter if it's a new student information system or whatever it is. It's going to be super hard to get that time. Everybody's competing for those PD hours.
Allison?
Yeah, I just, as teacher rep, I get frustrated when I feel like a narrative is sort of like, oh, well, some teachers are like on this old Easy Grade Pro that we were using 10 years ago, and they're just never going to do anything different than that. And so that's the problem. And for teachers, this is really frustrating. I never thought I would be like missing School Loop, which was, kind of a clunky system, but fact remains in School Loop, I could do things like I could click on a student in my study hall class and it would show me all of their grades and all of their classes, and I could easily one-click email all of their teachers, and I can't do that anymore. And there's
Allison, could I jump in there?
It's like, just really quickly, just let me finish. There are so many things. If I'm a SST caseworker and I'm looking at my kids, I can't see them in different classes. If I'm there, if I'm trying, like in my school, we have a year-long project that is 10% of the grade first semester and 20% of the grade second semester. I can't change the percentages across the semesters. There are so many things that are really limited. And I want to push back against the narrative that it's just the teacher who is not adapting, because this thing is not functional.
No,
But
my
Allison,
comment-
that's where I want to say, I think it's a training issue. And I will say that I keep hearing teachers say they can't see the grades for all of the classes. And
You can't unless you get permission. You cannot, Tom, unless you are given
no,
permission.
I'm telling you that I just did another minute for a student that I don't even have.
You have permission to do that then.
So
I don't know why. I
let me
didn't
just
ask for
jump
it.
in here real
Yeah, go
quick
ahead.
if I could interrupt, because really tonight we're just trying to share the parent portal and the information and how parents can access. I don't think we need to, tonight's not about going back and revisiting things we've already discussed in terms of Infinite Campus. My point of mentioning teachers' different usage was only to make the point that as far as LMS features, what parents may see or may not see, no matter what, is going to be dependent upon the teacher. That was all I meant by that.
I just
so
like the narrative sometimes that the teacher, if the parent doesn't see it, it's because the teacher didn't do it, and that's not always the case. I feel like that's unfair.
And then is just circling back to the response about the LMS features for Arun asked. The last thing that I wanted to share tonight was the Google Classroom component of things, but I was focused on the parent side of things. And with Google Classroom, the parents get notifications if they're invited as a guardian. That's their only option for Google Classroom. And on the next slide, it's just a screenshot of like my one of my Google Classrooms, where the teachers this is what the stream looks like in Google Classroom, which parents do not see unless the kid is logged into the classroom. But the teacher can go to the tab that says students and invite guardians. And that is something that a parent of a student who has Google Classroom, the parent could ask to be invited as a guardian. And the parent could get Google Classroom notifications that way. But the Google Classroom guardian does not give the parent the visibility of the stream and the actual classroom. It's strictly if they signed up for assignment notifications or due date notifications or whatever kind of notifications they sign up for, they simply get a notification. I used Google Classroom 8 years ago when I was still in the classroom. And I always just encouraged parents to have the students show them their Google Classroom, and that way they could share what they're doing, share what they see. But anyway, and then the other part of Google Classroom for teachers is, and it's not perfect, but the teachers can export graded work in Google Classroom to the Infinite Campus Gradebook. So that's another, there were a few strange things that happened recently where for some reason teachers, some classes got disconnected, and it was a Google issue. I believe, I don't know that it's been corrected yet. But the exporting of grades from Google Classroom into Infinite Campus, from what I've heard from teachers, works much better than it did with exporting grades or trying to export grades into School Loop. So that's kind of the last piece there with the Google Classroom. Lucas?
Yeah, thanks, Don. You know, I'm going to go back a little bit to what Arun said, and then also I saw a comment by Robert, I believe, asking our teachers using, Google Classroom or Infinite Campus. So there's a couple things, and there's a little bit of nuance here to understand. So Infinite Campus as a product can function as a gradebook alone. It can just be a gradebook. However, we do have the LMS functionality associated with it. So sometimes when we think about an LMS, we think, okay, well, this is a third-party system that is outside of the existing database. But if you can imagine, there's really no reason why you couldn't develop an LMS that is part of the gradebook, right? So it's all one system. So when we talk about Infinite Campus can be used literally as just a gradebook. So if a parent or if a teacher wanted to do that, they could choose to do that. Or they can use the LMS tools where they would have discussion threads and some of the other pieces that you would have available in an LMS. But because it's all in the same place, a lot of people don't really think there's a difference, but there is, because there are what I would categorize as LMS features, and that is the campus learning component. And then there's campus gradebook, right? Now, when we talk about Google Classroom is the third-party LMS, but we have it connected. So we have teachers out there who use Google Classroom, and that's really their only tool. They send their assignments into Infinite Campus Gradebook, and then they do a little bit of massaging usually in there. And that's the case for any student information system where they're using the gradebook in that way. So if, Synergy, for example, if there's a district out there using that system, they can tie Google Classroom to that system and push their grades in the same way that we're doing with Infinite Campus. But even though you have teachers using Google Classroom, they could also choose to use the LMS functionality within Infinite Campus. But typically you're going to see one or the other. If I'm someone who really, really loves to use Google Classroom, that's where I'm going to put all my energy as a teacher. I'll do all my assignments, all my discussion threads, all my communications with my students there. And then I'll push those assignments and data into the Infinite Campus Gradebook. However, we do have quite a few teachers who just use the Infinite Campus LMS, obviously simultaneously using the gradebook because they're tied together. Is that a helpful description for the parents who are here?
Yeah, and Lucas, I'm just going to let you know that was the last slide. So if you want to stop presenting, people can see each other a little bit better. And if there are any more questions, I can answer them. I think Arun has his hand up.
Yeah, so I guess my question would be, are we going to try and evaluate an LMS, or are we going to try and work with what we have? From what I looked at in the surrounding districts, there is a combination of an LMS and a gradebook, and Infinite Campus seems to be the common gradebook used, and the LMS kind of varies depending on the school district. There is fairly large scale adoption of Schoology. I don't know if there's a reason for that or not, but Google Classroom is fine. I mean, it's quite ubiquitous, and it seems a lot of teachers are using it. So at this point, I think it would be somewhat hard to move out of Google Classroom, given that there's at least 50% adoption. So yeah, I guess my question is, are we even considering evaluating an LMS, or we just want to try and see how it goes?
Lucas?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Arun. So part of the goal, or part of what I was thinking about tonight, as I talked with Tom and as I talked with Don, I wanted to get the parents on the panel here. I wanted to get your thinking as you saw tonight what is available to you as a parent. What else is there? Is there something else that you are looking for that was not available in what you saw tonight? And if there is, like, what is that? you know, that's part of, as we think through this decision, Arun, you're absolutely right. There's districts all around us that use third-party LMSs. Obviously, there's a cost associated with that. If we were to use Canvas or Schoology, which are probably they're the two most widely used ones. But that's really why I wanted you as the parents to see what is actually available, because some of you may not be actively using your app or using the portal to look at your students' information. But based on what you saw tonight, what is your feedback and what is your thinking on this? Because I think that could help answer the question, right? I mean, if as a parent, you're seeing all the information that you would want to have as a parent, from your perspective, that might answer it, at least from that direction.
Linda had her hand up, and then Juan.
So for me, I mean, again, I'll go back to, it's not School Loop. Was super, happy with the communications from School Loop. I don't get into my kids' stuff. I don't get into their Google Drives. I don't get into their classrooms. I kind of go and I look and, your grades are, we need to work on them type thing. The one thing that I found tonight that I didn't realize was the missing work. With School Loop, we used to get the daily emails that would tell us how many zeros the kids had. Well, I didn't know that was available in Infinite Campus. Now I do. It's not in my face like it used to be in School Loop, which is fine. It's actually better, I think, because as a first-time parent, when my daughter was in 7th grade and I first got into School Loop, as a parent, you get consumed with it. You're checking it every hour. What's going on? What, is she doing her work? And as you mature and you get another student that goes through, you find you're not doing that. You're not as consumed with all the information coming at you. So in a way for me as a parent, I like not having it in my face. I like, kind of, it gives my kids who don't need a whole lot, they're very independent. So they don't need a lot of hand holding. They don't need me to be checking in on them all the time. It's actually a very good balance.
Juan?
Oh, hi. Yeah, hi. Yeah, just want to make some comments. First, well, Linda, thank you so much for sharing. I think you're very lucky to have the two have independent kids. But for me, it's a little different. I have 2 boys, and a lot of times they're really messy. They create a lot of trouble for me and my wife to trying to track down where they are in the status of their homework submission, and also in their sudden drop in grade. So a lot of times they constantly give us heartbreak. But I would say that, well, yes, my family went through both School Loop and Infinite Campus, and then now I have to say that this mobile app provided by Infinite Campus is becoming a very useful tool, at least for my wife. Trust me, my wife is not computer savvy. She doesn't even know how to use a computer, PC, or Mac, but she does have a cell phone. So we have the Infinite Campus app installed on her phone. So guess what? From what I can observe, she's becoming very effective in using the app to really check the status of the submission, the absence. I think that this app is really giving her 95% of everything that my wife really needs to do to be on top of 2 messy boys. So first, thank you so much for the IT team for Fremont Unified School District for doing a great job for providing the tool for parent to use. Just 2 very quick comments here. Discrepancy on grading. A lot of time we see that our kids are getting only, say, 60 out of 120 grade. These are incompatible systems. So I was told that the teachers doing the learning process and how to reconcile their old grading system into the new one. So from time to time, you got to take them some time to learn. But nowadays, this kind of problem has really becoming is happening less frequently. So I think that's great. The second thing is, I think one of the good features in this School Loop passes, it's very easy for us to send a message to the teacher. I heard from the earlier demonstration that there's a way for us to connect to the teacher, but it was not very obvious to us. So if somehow we can maybe maybe point to the parent on how we can use this tool to communicate with our teacher, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Hawani. I do agree with you. One of the features that School Loop had that was really phenomenal was that ability to very quickly send a communication. And it is a difference. And I have to say, I wish Infinite Campus worked exactly like that, because I personally also really like that feature. But right now the limitation is you have to go into the course, find the teacher's email address, and email the teacher.
Arun?
I don't know if you're aware that it's 8:25 and we need your update, so I'm not sure what you want to do at this point.
So I think, that's a good point. Thanks, Don. Are people okay if we go a little bit late tonight? Because I think there's some good questions happening here. I'm okay with it if others are able to do as well. Do we have any strong objection? Okay, all right. So we'll plan on going.
If people have to leave, they can leave. I don't think we have any more voting issues.
Why don't we plan? Let's start at
We can push that off.
Yeah, so I guess, is it my time to speak? Or? Okay. So well, with Infinite Campus, it's not a system that I'm super thrilled at, but it gives me what I need, which is the grades. The only thing there is, obviously, I wish they could be updated in time. They're updated sometimes a month later, but that's not the system's fault. That's the person entering the grade. I'm usually on top of what my kid does. I know what's going on, but sometimes I lose track. That's where you get into trouble. The other thing is, with Google Classroom, the thing I want to know is putting someone in as a guardian, can that be a default setting imported from Infinite Campus, or is that something that a teacher has to manually do based on a parent request? It would be nice if it was default, because I don't like going into my kid's email and checking if you have all the assignments that are open and not to be submitted. And the third thing is, as a parent, I trust my kid to take care of things, but sometimes if I need to plan activities, I just want to know there's an assignment due, and I just don't want to put an undue burden. Sometimes there's a sporting activity, so I do need to get a little bit involved. So I think there is scope for parent involvement in an LMS, as opposed to something being completely hands off. And I think updates from Google Classroom would do. Now, I haven't seen Schoology or Canvas. The only thing I can say about Canvas is a lot of kids use it with UC Scout and Ohlone, so they do like it. It's a cost issue there, so and it will have to be substantially better than what's free right now, essentially, with Google Classroom. So I'm not the best judge of that. I think that those were my points.
Okay. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of issues of school. Infinite Campus, and as a teacher, we've been fighting them, but at this point, it's kind of, we are where we are, and we can't. We've signed the contract. Maybe we need to, at the appropriate time, we come back when the contract is up and look at changing. The situation we're in now is, does Google Classroom and Infinite Campus satisfy the needs of all the people as an LMS system? And I think that's the question we're looking at now. We really can't revisit Infinite Campus right now. We're already financially tied to that. So, have an issue right now that I'm fighting with Infinite Campus. But regardless, so I guess the question from our standpoint right now is, based on, the information we have, do we feel there is a need? And I'm not asking for a yes or no right here, but philosophically, do we think as a district we need to look at do we need to be looking at an additional LMS system? And I guess that's the question we as TAC, we represent various constituencies. I can speak for my staff. Nobody there is asking for an additional LMS system. They have issues, whether it's with, Infinite Campus. And earlier somebody asked, some people use Infinite Campus, some people use Google Classroom, some use both. I don't know, Allison, if your staff is asking for an additional LMS or not, or they're just unhappy with, if they're unhappy with Infinite Campus. And I think that's two separate questions. I really believe that. And I think that's the question we're really looking at. It. Does that make sense? Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, I know for tonight, obviously the focus was, I wanted to hear from the parents. I wanted to hear, based upon what you saw, if the information that you saw was going to be sufficient. We do know, obviously, that there's still some challenges happening out there with the use of Infinite Campus. And I think, Tom, you made a really good point that there is, there is a distinction between the gradebook and an LMS. So, the thing that I want to make really clear is, if the district were to go down the road of say, well, let's adopt a different LMS, that's not necessarily going to change the destination for the grades, right? Infinite Campus is the destination of where the assignments will end up and where the grades will end up ultimately for the purpose of report cards and for transcripts. So that's something to keep in mind. If we adopted an LMS that was, say, a little bit more premium, so to speak, you might have parents who would live more in the LMS than they do right now in Infinite Campus. But ultimately, again, the destination for all of that data is going to be Infinite Campus, because that's where our transcripts come from, and that's where our report cards are going to come from. So those pieces we're still going to have to make sure that we're addressing. It's not really necessarily going to make those pieces, perhaps some of the challenges, go away. I know, Allison mentioned about changing the weighting in the middle of the year. Well, that was something that we kind of learned about sideways, and there is a workaround for it where you would create new categories with different weighting. But it was something that it just didn't dawn on us, right? And that's, I'll say from the IT department's perspective, obviously we're working as hard as we can to make sure that we learn these features as fast as we can. And I also, want to put my kudos out there to Dawn and the tech liaisons. I understand, Allison, that it's not easy. This is super hard. And I absolutely don't want to put any blame on the teachers. So I appreciate that comment. But these are the kinds of things where we will learn some of these nuances. And just to give an example, if we were to adopt Canvas as our LMS, we would still need to send those grades into Infinite Campus, and we would have to have the categories in there, and we would have to have them weighted appropriately if we were going to change them at semester time. So an LMS is not going to necessarily change that, right? So there are some nuances that we're having to learn for sure. And I'm the first to say there are things that I wish our current solution would do better. But again, I think the consensus, at least from tonight, that I heard from the parents who spoke up is the system is providing most of the information that you want. There were definitely some things that we liked in School Loop. I completely agree. What I can tell you is if we were to adopt a system like Canvas or Schoology, it's not going to solve there's nothing out there like Schooloop. I've been in the business almost 25 years now, and I'd never seen Schooloop before I came to California. And they had some really cool features. There is zero question about it. So my commitment and our data division's commitment is that we're going to keep pushing for the improvements to the system that we want. And we've gotten quite a few enhancements this year that many districts have benefited from. And what I told my data division is we need to start building those connections to the other districts in California. And we all need to request the enhancements that we want so that we're getting the things that we want. And we are starting to get a lot of change. I can tell you, in talking to some of the districts that have been using Infinite Campus for a long time, it seemed like there was a bit of a lull in, I guess, the effort with the districts to get change. But with Illuminate going away, we had a lot of leverage, and we're really beginning to benefit from that leverage. There's a lot of enhancements that have happened that have been no cost to the districts because we've all gone together and said, we need these changes. So I know it's been challenging. I know it's been frustrating. And in less than ideal circumstances, changing a system, because it's not just the teachers who have been struggling. It's also been the Ann Damerons, me personally using the system, me having to learn a new system that I really had not really used as an end user before to send out messages. So I hear the frustrations, but again, for tonight, I appreciate the feedback from the parents. I know for me, when I think back to when my son was in high school, the kind of information I got is the kind of information that I see Infinite Campus and Google Classroom providing. So it is, it's the solution that we have right now. So that's my summary statement there.
Okay. Let's see here. Sorry.
Can I make a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes. Somebody like to second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, either type yes or raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions for those that weren't here? Looks like Michelle abstained. Okay, with that, it is passed. Okay. Bart, do we need to continue reaffirming our online and?
No, that's
No?
now,
Okay.
that's now at the board level.
Okay, so we don't have to do that. That said, we may, the board may take the position just giving everybody a heads up that they may go to back to all committees meeting in person. Although I will say we get better participation, at least in this committee, in all my years meeting virtually. So, given the time factor, I'd like to table the student activation, and then we already did the. Whoops, I'm looking at the wrong agenda. I am sorry. My apologies here.
Looks like Diane has her hand raised, Tom.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Diane, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to address that really quickly. I think I can only speak for myself, but I'm certainly open to keeping committee meetings virtual. And I haven't heard anything from the other trustees that leads me to believe they aren't either. But the emergency order may expire. And so at the state level, they may no longer allow meetings to continue virtually. So I think there's limited control that we're going to have moving forward. I'm not sure how quickly that will all change at the state level, but I can continue advocating with our legislators to allow us to continue having our committees meet virtually, which is something that I'll do.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to, if it's okay, Lucas, if you could, since you're going to be talking about the emergency connectivity funding, if you could tie that into your CTO's update as well, and go from there.
Yeah, I definitely don't need 15 minutes for new business. I imagine there probably won't be a lot of questions about this, and it could have been a CTO update too. I just wanted to let people know or remind folks that this year there was special one-time funding made available by the federal government through the Emergency Connectivity Fund, administered by USAC, which is the same organization that administers the federal E-rate program. As a district, we applied for 6,027 Chromebooks based upon usage data from previous year. These Chromebooks and the funding was approved for it, and we've already placed that order. These Chromebooks are specifically identified to be utilized by students who do not have devices at home, and the IT department will be administering the checkout and making sure that we're tracking it so that if there were to be an audit, we would have that information. Essentially, the plan is that the schools would identify who the students are. We'll have a form that needs to be filled out. From the district office, we'll have a distribution center, and those will be brought out to the sites by some of Mary Lassica's team and then distributed to those families. They'll have to sign the form, saying that, yes, I don't have a device at home, and because of this program, blah, 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 I'll have a device now to use. So that's a really good thing. I don't see us getting a lot of those out the door, though, by the end of the year, but I anticipate for sure by next fall, we'll have that happening. And, I'm a believer that, our students who have the highest need, it's really important that we try and identify solutions for them because, I think I've told you guys this before. My philosophy is that technology is not just a tool, it's an essential tool. And the kids who benefit from it have a whole world open to them. And there's a lot of families out there that don't have that. So I'm really excited about this program. It's, it's going to be an extra workload for us, but I think it's really important. So any real quick questions about the ECF
Linda?
Program?
Did this also cover hotspots, Lucas, or is it just Chromebooks?
So yeah, so some hotspot service was covered. It's been a real challenge to do that. So as a district, we did get funding approved back to July 1st. So for our students that are using in the Virtual Academy program, we're going to get reimbursed for that. We may be able to get some additional hotspots out the door between now and June 30th. But unfortunately, the approvals happen so late, and we're not the only districts in this same boat. The approvals happen so late, we didn't know if we were going to get funding or not. And then to try and manage it, working with the providers, it was really just up until about a couple weeks ago that I got a commitment from our hotspot provider as to the method of reimbursement. The amount of time I've been committing to it has been pretty silly, to be honest with you. And we're not the only district who's been dealing with this, but we're definitely benefiting from it, but not to the degree that I had hoped for the year. But we have families that are getting hotspots, and we're getting reimbursed for those as a district eventually. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay.
We'll follow up on that question. The deadline.
Okay.
All right. So I guess it's a real quick CTO update, right? All right. So I wanted to provide one piece of information. So the IT department is going to be getting an IT project manager, which is really good news. This person will be starting March 23rd, and it's funded by the bond program, so it is a temporary position. But this person will be a direct interaction with the construction teams and will report to the CTO. So this is a position that really should have been in place long before I started here, and I've been advocating for it since I've been here, because it really, hopefully it will take a load off of the management team within IT, and it will improve really the outcomes for some of these construction projects. So that's a big plus that's going to be happening. And then the other piece is really, I guess, just some news on my part. Some of you are already aware I will be moving on to a new position and leaving the district. My last day is this Friday, and I have to tell you that this was not something necessarily that I wanted to do. I'm really, really sad to be leaving the district. I have developed such wonderful relationships with you on the TAC and with my director cohort. I mean, really have developed some friendships, and Allison in particular, like you and Henry, welcomed me when I came here from California, and we went out to dinner one time. It was just, you can't say enough good things. So I'm gonna miss you guys.
Well, I can speak, Lucas, for myself. Definitely miss you. One of the things I appreciate in any person in a position is always a willingness to listen to people's concerns. And I will say your position for you and your predecessor, it's always been a hot seat position. You're trying to fulfill the needs of such a varied group of people, whether it's teachers or administrative assistants, or it's payroll, or all the people that are accessing the tech. So it's not an easy job, and I know that I don't speak just for myself, but everybody definitely appreciate. Allison?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, before Lucas started, I was like, what? You're hiring an outside person from a different state? Oh no, and I was very opposed. And I found out that Lucas was very, very, very professional and overqualified and amazing and really to listen to people. And I was just really excited that we had him on our team, and now I'm very sad. And it's just, yeah, I think it's really nice that you've been here with us and you've given us 112,000%. And I'm glad that you will get more time to walk your dog, hopefully now. But thank you. Thank you for being with us and doing such a good job.
Diane?
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, Lucas. You are definitely going to be missed. I remember early on in the pandemic when we were doing remote board meetings and I was having connectivity issues during a live board meeting. And Lucas was troubleshooting with me as I was running around my house trying to find an area that I could get better reception, and help me troubleshoot all of that over the next week. But I was sweating in that board meeting as I was running around my house trying to pay attention and keep up with what was going on. And when I needed to vote, it was really a struggle, and Lucas was right there. So I'm not sure that even I see everything that Lucas does and helps people with on a daily basis. But I just can't thank you enough, and wish you the very best as you move on, and just know that we will definitely miss you.
Thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, I would say that, when I was like Allison, when I first heard we were hiring someone from out of state, and I was like, oh my God, these guys, California is just very different in good and bad ways. And especially with our budget, Fremont has probably the worst budget around. Our previous guy came from Redwood City, and at least he had an idea of California politics, and here's someone who's coming to a crazy state. But Lucas never blinked, never complained. And then the pandemic came along and things got twice as hard. And I was telling parents, no, we can't do this. You don't know how crazy IT department's working, but Lucas handled everything with grace. It's truly amazing. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Ellie?
I'll most certainly echo the last comment that the position at this time in history has been a monumental undertaking, and whether Lucas has been focusing on systems or hardware issues, software issues, professional development for staff, the proficiencies that he brings to the position is truly amazing. But what in particular that I've always appreciated about working with you is it always centers back to what is going to improve student outcomes. And I just very much appreciate working with the leadership that you've provided, knowing that that is the end focus of all your work. I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
Samira?
Yep, thank you so much, Lucas. Really appreciate this, and even getting into the attack, it was all because of your email and the process that you led through, and it was amazing. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Linda?
Yeah, Lucas, I just want to say thank you. I mean, you were thrown into a show. The district as a whole was, looking at losing Illuminate, and that all was happening right when you came. It had to, kind of shift gears real quick and get into something, and, decided on Infinite Campus. And, you've just worked your tail off trying to get things done. And, with the staff, the small staff that you have, it's really amazed at what we've got for the district with the staff that you've worked with, and the progress that you've made. So I just want to say thank you. And I mean, working with you has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Linda. Likewise.
And good luck in wherever you're off to.
Don? You're muted, Don. Those
I hit it twice.
early words were lost.
I double clicked, I guess. I almost don't have any words. And for those of you who have known me for decades, that doesn't happen very often. We English teachers can usually roll with the best of them. I have spent so much time with Lucas over the last several years. And Lucas, all I can say is it's a truly a devastating loss to this district. I can't imagine anyone filling your shoes, and I wish you truly all the best because you deserve it. But I thank you for the tireless hours and dedication, and you gave it everything you had, and I just wish that you had the support you needed, and I'm gonna miss you terribly.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I mean, I have obviously stories about working with each of you, and I mean, yeah, I will treasure the experiences I had with each of you and work, and having lunch, whatever it was. The good news is I don't have to move for my new position, and so I'll be still living in Niles, and I will definitely be doing some lunches with people. So you'll see me around, and hopefully you won't ask me too many work questions, but I'll deal with it if you do. Oh, thank you, everyone. Truly.
Well, again, thank you, Lucas. And I know that wherever you do end up, you will do very well, and they're lucky to have you on their team. So with that, again, we've never had it officially, but the agenda items have pretty much been, people have been emailed and we've been adding on, and until we do come up with an official process, please go ahead and email myself or Lucas, and we will then add them to the budget. the agenda. I have budget on my mind here. The agenda and go from there. Robert, you had something to comment?
Yeah, one quick question. I forgot to bring this up last meeting. We're getting toward the end of the year, and we should decide whether you want to do a presentation to the board. So we can think about that between now and then. Next meeting.
Yeah, I was going to talk with Lucas about that in preparation for the next meeting, but now I guess we'll have to wait for a week or so, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and go from there. And it may be, I'll put it on as agenda item for next month. That'll be April, and but I'll talk with Lucas. Perhaps we can get the placeholder in for the May meeting, in the board meeting, and then we can go from there, based on what we decide in April.
Yeah, one quick comment about that. I know the board has requested some additional information. They wanted feedback more frequently. And so I believe one potential option was to provide a quarterly update to them. But I don't know necessarily if that was in place of the presentation to the board. So I think there's still some, some answers that we need to get in regards to that.
Okay. Unless there is something else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Can you make one? Sorry.
Allison made the motion and Linda seconded it. And
Okay, there we go.
I'm sorry. I thought Tom made the motion.
No, I honestly, I don't know Robert rules as well as my daughter, but I as chairman, I never make a motion.
There you
I
go.
think
All
I
right.
can officially, but I don't ever. So, okay. Without objection, then the meeting is adjourned. And everybody have a wonderful evening. And I will see you all next month.
All right. Thank
Good
you,
night.
guys.
Thank you, Lucas.
Bye, Lucas. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas.